Imagine you're sitting inside your own home. The curtains are closed, the doors are locked, there are no cameras pointed at you, no police officers standing outside your window. As far as you know, nobody can see what you're doing, but there's something inside your house that is constantly sending invisible signals through the walls. Your Wi-Fi router. Most people think of Wi-Fi as nothing more than a way to connect phones, televisions, computers, and other devices to the internet. But Wi-Fi signals are also radio waves, and those waves move through the environment around them. When a person moves through a room, those signals can change. And researchers and technology companies have been exploring ways to use those changes to detect movement and presence. That raises a very uncomfortable question. Could technology eventually allow law enforcement to gather information about what is happening inside your home without physically entering it? And if it can, where does ordinary technology end and a Fourth Amendment search begin? To understand the issue, you first have to understand what Wi-Fi sensing actually means. Your router is constantly transmitting radio frequency signals. Those signals travel through your home, bounce off walls and objects, and interact with everything around them. When you walk across a room, your body changes the way those signals travel, move closer to the router, and the signal characteristics can change. Walk between the router and another device, and they can change again. Even small movements can potentially produce measurable differences in the signal environment. For years, this information was mostly treated as a technical problem. Routers use signal information to maintain connections and improve performance. But technology has changed. Companies and researchers have discovered that the same basic principles can potentially be used for something completely different, detecting movement inside a space without using a traditional camera. Think about what that means. A camera needs a clear visual path. Wi-Fi signals don't work that way. They can travel through walls and around objects. That doesn't mean your ordinary router is secretly producing a perfect video of your house. It isn't. But with specialized software, sensors, algorithms, and enough data, changes in wireless signals can potentially reveal information about movement or whether someone is present in a particular area. And that's where the privacy issue becomes serious, because your home isn't just another public location. The Supreme Court has repeatedly recognized that the home receives especially strong protection under the Fourth Amendment. In Kyllo, United States, police use thermal imaging technology from outside a home to detect heat patterns associated with activity inside. The Supreme Court treated the use of that technology as a Fourth Amendment search because it allowed officers to obtain information about the interior of a home that otherwise could not have been obtained without physical intrusion. That case involved thermal imaging, not Wi-Fi. But the underlying question is extremely important. What happens when the government uses technology that allows officers to learn information about activities inside your home that they could not ordinarily see from outside? Now imagine replacing a thermal camera with wireless signals. Instead of detecting heat, the system analyzes changes in radio waves. Instead of showing you an image, the system could potentially produce information about movement or presence. And suddenly, the technology becomes much more difficult for ordinary people to understand. You can't look at your wall and know whether someone is collecting this information. There may be no visible camera. There may be no police vehicle outside. There may be no obvious sign that anything is happening at all. And that creates another problem. The technology is developing faster than the law surrounding it. Courts have spent decades applying Fourth Amendment principles to new technologies, but technology doesn't wait for judges. First comes the invention, then companies begin using it, then consumers bring it into their homes. Then government agencies discover that the technology can be useful for investigations, and only later does a specific case potentially make its way through the courts. That doesn't mean police automatically have the legal right to use every new technology without a warrant. It means the legal question can become complicated very quickly. And that's why you shouldn't believe anyone who tells you that Wi-Fi sensing automatically means police can see everything you're doing inside your house. That is far too broad. The technology has limitations. The information it produces depends on the equipment, software, environment, and purpose for which it is being used. But the privacy concern is still real, because even limited information can become powerful when it is collected over time. Imagine a system that doesn't show exactly what you're doing, but can determine that someone is moving around inside the house. Now imagine it records those patterns repeatedly. At first, that might not seem particularly revealing, but over time, patterns begin to emerge. You might regularly move through the house at certain hours. You might spend most of your time in one room. You might leave the house at a predictable time every morning. You might return at approximately the same time every evening. None of those individual pieces of information necessarily tells the whole story. But put them together, and you can begin creating a behavioral profile. And that's where surveillance becomes much more powerful. The government doesn't necessarily need one piece of information that tells the entire story. It can potentially combine small pieces of information from multiple sources. Your Wi-Fi environment, your phone location, security cameras, license plate readers, smart home devices, connected vehicles, public surveillance cameras. Individually, each system may reveal only a small piece of your life. Combined, they can reveal a much larger picture. And that brings us to an important Supreme Court case, Carpenter v. United States. In Carpenter, the court considered government access to historical cell site location information and recognized that long-term digital tracking can create an extraordinarily detailed record of a person's movements. The case did not involve Wi-Fi sensing, but it demonstrates something important about constitutional privacy in the digital age. The fact that information is held by a technology company doesn't automatically end the privacy conversation. And courts have increasingly had to consider whether modern technology allows the government to obtain deeply revealing information about a person's private life in ways that earlier Fourth Amendment doctrines never anticipated. Now, let's take that principle back inside your home. Suppose police don't have a camera inside your house. They don't physically enter. They don't look through your windows. Instead, they obtain information generated by a connected device or wireless system that reveals something about activity inside the home. The legal question isn't simply, is this Wi-Fi? The real questions become, what information was collected? How detailed was it? Who collected it? How did police obtain it? Did they obtain it directly or through a company? Was a warrant required? Was there consent? And what exactly did the technology allow officers to learn? Those details matter enormously. And this is where you should be careful about another popular misconception. The idea that police can simply call an internet provider and demand whatever they want. That's not how the law universally works. Different types of data can receive different legal treatment. The method used to obtain the information matters. The type of information matters, the duration of collection matters, and the applicable federal and state laws matter. So don't assume that because a company possesses information, police automatically have unlimited access to it. But don't assume the opposite either. The smarter approach is to understand what information your own devices are generating. And that's where you can actually take some practical steps. Start with your router. Log into the router's administration panel or the manufacturer's app and look through the privacy and smart home settings. Depending on the manufacturer, you may see features involving motion detection, presence detection, activity monitoring, smart home awareness, analytics, diagnostics, or similar functionality. The exact names vary. If your router or mesh system offers a motion sensing or presence detection feature that you don't need, consider disabling it. Then look for settings related to data collection. Some systems collect diagnostic information or usage statistics to help manufacturers improve their products. You may have options controlling analytics, telemetry, remote management, or data sharing. Review those settings carefully. You don't necessarily need to turn off every feature on your network. The point is to understand what your equipment is capable of doing and what information it may be generating. Next, pay attention to the devices connected to your network. Your router may not be the only device collecting information. Smart televisions, voice assistants, security systems, thermostats, lights, fitness devices, and other connected products can generate information about activity inside your home. Again, that doesn't mean every device is secretly spying on you. It means every connected device potentially creates another source of information. And the more connected devices you have, the more complicated your digital footprint becomes. Another practical step is to keep your router's firmware updated and change default administrative credentials. That's not specifically a Fourth Amendment issue, but it is basic security. A poorly secured router can create problems for reasons that have nothing to do with law enforcement. And if privacy is a priority for you, consider using networking equipment that gives you greater control over configuration, logging, remote management, and data sharing settings. But there is one thing you should never assume. Don't assume that turning off one setting makes your home completely invisible. Technology changes, manufacturers update software, features differ between devices, and the legal rules governing government access can depend on circumstances that have nothing to do with your router settings. The bigger lesson is awareness. Your home is becoming increasingly connected. The same technology that makes your life easier can also create information about your habits. And once information exists somewhere, questions about who can access it become extremely important. Because privacy isn't only about whether someone is physically standing inside your house. It can also be about what information technology allows someone outside your house to learn about what is happening inside. That is why the Fourth Amendment remains so important in the digital age. The Constitution was written long before Wi-Fi, smartphones, smart televisions, cloud storage, or artificial intelligence existed. But the basic question remains remarkably familiar. How much power should the government have to obtain information about a person's private life? And when technology makes it possible to learn things that were previously impossible to observe, should the law treat that information like something anyone could have seen from the street? Those are questions courts will continue to confront as surveillance technology evolves. For now, don't panic. Your ordinary Wi-Fi router does not automatically give police a live video feed of your home, but don't ignore the technology either. Understand what your router can do. Review the privacy settings. Disable unnecessary motion or presence features. Understand what information your smart devices collect. And pay attention to how companies describe the data their products generate and store. Because the more technology enters our homes, the more important it becomes to understand the invisible information leaving them. And that brings us to the next problem. We've talked about cameras watching your home. We've talked about technology detecting movement through walls. We've talked about the Fourth Amendment and the growing battle over digital surveillance. But what happens when police don't need your Wi-Fi router to learn where you are? What if they can use the wireless networks around you to track your movements and identify where you've been? That's the next privacy problem we're going to break down.